Chapter 291, Happy Memories 1. One day in the past, Han Soo-young had said, "First time I tried creating a clone using Avatar. I gave away too many of my memories, and it went out of control." How interesting, where did you hear that? The character Han Soo-young is curious about you. Your understanding of the character Han Soo-young has increased. Han Soo-young's clone was looking at me with interest. Her eyes were so vivid that I couldn't help doubting if she was really a clone for a moment. However, the real Han Soo-young wouldn't be so composed. "I have familiar with your main body. She has a loose mouth." It is a childish provocation, but I will let it pass this time. Your idea is wrong. I'm not Han Soo-young's clone, but the real Han Soo-young." "What?" The shape of this smiling mouth was undoubtedly Han Soo-young. "I have memories that she doesn't have." "Memories? What memories?" "Unlike her, I am tight-lipped." I grasped the hilt of the sword at my waist. "I heard that clones will live even if their heads are cut off." In any case, I hadn't come here to waste time. The unbroken faith in my hand cried out violently. "The constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is looking at Incarnation, Han Soo-young." The whole suite shook from the status I released. I heard loud noises from below, but Han Soo-young wasn't nervous at all. "Demon King, you are bigger than I think." The next moment, I realized why she was composed. A net of probability spread over the entire room. The status that I emitted suddenly fell sharply. "This area is a non-aggression zone. You are prohibited from fighting in the area for the next hour." A non-aggression zone. Did you make a deal with the Dakibai? It is necessary for a person who can control Yu Jonghyuk. I decided not to think of her as a mere clone anymore. Maybe, as she said, this was the real Han Soo-young. Then a system message was heard. "The character Han Soo-young has triggered the Eyes of Truth." Eyes of Truth. It was an attributes detection skill comparable to Anna Croft's Great Demon's Eye. In this short time, Han Soo-young tried to read my information. The exclusive skill, Fourth Wall, is activated. The fourth wall has completely broken down the Eyes of Truth. Sparks flew and Han Soo-young hurriedly canceled the skill. "You have a tremendous skill." Han Soo-young wasn't greedy. She didn't try to break the fourth wall like Yu Jonghyuk and didn't panic like Anna Croft. This calmness wasn't the Han Soo-young that I knew. Han Soo-young laughed like it was fun. "You can cut off my head later. Shall we play a game? Do you know the divine 3 questions and answers?" It was the question and answer exchange I had once done with Ariadne of Olympus. "Don't you have questions you are curious about? Let's exchange them one by one." I didn't know what was going on, however this was clearly a chance for me. I nodded in agreement. "Okay. Let's make a rule instead. We are able to lie." "Then, what is the use of the 3 questions and answers exchange?" "It is interesting." Han Soo-young's eyes moved in a smooth curve. It wasn't difficult to read what she was thinking. I smiled and replied, "Yes, okay." At my answer, messages popped up in the air. "Divine 3 questions and answers has begun. Both sides will exchange 3 questions and answers. Both sides can refuse to answer 1 question. Conversation won't end until the questions and answers are fully exchanged. I will ask first. First question ticket has been used. Tell me about the contents of the Outer World contract you signed with secretive plotter." Han Soo-young shook a bit at my first question. Your understanding of the character Han Soo-young has increased. The key to this exchange was to create concrete questions that were difficult for the other person to avoid. I also had to make the most of the information that could be handed over. Han Soo-young said to me, "You even know this. It isn't easy." "Answer me." "It means you have also made an outer world covenant." She was quick to notice, just like Han Soo-young of the 3rd round. Han Soo-young continued speaking. "I have signed an outer world contract with secretive plotter. If he hears what he wants, he will help me complete the world I wanted." First answer has been received. It wasn't a very informative answer. The important thing was the authenticity of the answer. The exclusive skill Lie Detection LV6 is activated. The character Han Soo-young has triggered Poker Face LV10. Poker Face has neutralized the effect of lie detection. As expected, she knew this skill. There was Poker Face among the skills that I saw on her character list. Thanks to this skill, it was impossible to find out the truth of the answer using lie detection. Of course, that didn't mean I had no solution. The exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, has been activated. Your understanding of this person is sufficient, and the second stage of Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is activated. As soon as she became a character, I could read her thoughts just by asking questions. The next moment, I knew it. I told you. Don't step on my feet. Why are you peeking at me? I instantly heard hundreds of voices, and my herd felt like it was going to burst. I didn't have any time to express my astonishment and hurriedly canceled the skill. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint has been turned off. I looked at Han Soo-young blankly, and she had a peculiar smile on her face. I did this just in case, and indeed, I thought there would be such a skill. What was that just now? Is that your second question? I reflexively closed my mouth. Han Soo-young laughed. Well, I'll answer as a free service. It is an application of the avatar skill. I finally understood what was going on. Han Soo-young split herself into hundreds by using avatar. I looked at Han Soo-young's cheerful expression and felt my heart beating quickly. I had never met such an opponent before. Han Soo-young spoke first. This time I will ask. Incarnation, Han Soo-young has used the first question ticket. Have you ever written a novel called Ways of Survival? Some questions implied information just by the question itself. I knew for sure what this person thought of me. Thus, I had to show off my skills here. That's right, I wrote it. The character Han Soo-young has used Lie Detection LV10. The exclusive skill Poker Face LV5 is activated. I'm sorry, but I also had the Poker Face skill. Just before I came to this round, I bought a bunch of needed skills to the Dokibai bag. Poker Face has neutralized the effect of lie detection. Han Soo-young's lips curved slightly at the message. You're really interesting. This person was also interesting. Is this really Yu Jonghyuk? Lee Xiaohua asked like it was unbelievable. Standing in front of her were Iron Blood's Supreme King Yu Jonghyuk. Yu Jonghyuk stood upright and stared into space with blank eyes. People flocked around Yu Jonghyuk. It was Lee Jihai who scolded them first. What are you all looking at? What's wrong with you when you've often seen him on the screen? It's amazing. This is the first time I've seen him standing still like this. How did you do it? Did you use poison? Even Han Dong-hoon, sitting in the control room, observed Yu Jonghyuk through the panel windows. Kim Nam-woon sneaked up beside Yu Jonghyuk and took a subtle pose. Click, click. Lee Jihai frowned as she saw the scene. What are you doing? The surprised Kim Nam-woon's phone flew into the air. Then a hand stretched out from Kim Nam-woon's shadow and grabbed the smartphone in place of Kim Nam-woon. Hey, let's take a photo together. This opportunity isn't common. Hey, shouldn't you leave him alone? Why are you taking photos? Lee Jihai grabbed his wrist and roared. Then there was the sound of a photo being taken. The photo showed the expressionless Yu Jonghyuk, the giggling Kim Nam-woon, and the angry Lee Jihai. The soldier over there, don't just stand there and move out of the way. We're taking photos. Lee Hyun-sung stood still in the distance, and Lee Xiaohua hit Kim Nam-woon's head. Didn't I tell you to use honorifics with Hyun-sung SSI? Oh, I hate it. Stop nagging me. Clicking. By the way, is this guy really safe? Shall I stab him once? Don't do anything. The guy who climbed up set a strange trigger. If the worst happens, he will start a massacre. Clicking. Trigger? What trigger? I think he told Yu Jonghyuk to go on a rampage if he was harmed. Then what about this? Kim Nam-woon smiled and put a hand on Yu Jonghyuk's shoulder. Yu Jonghyuk didn't react. What? This is okay. Then what about this? People laughed as they surrounded the empty Yu Jonghyuk. There were some who were amazed and others who were happy. Clicking. Several photos were taken, and Yu Jonghyuk's expression changed little by little. Faint emotions appeared in the depth of his hollow eyes. Maybe they were emotions that Yu Jonghyuk himself couldn't understand. His eyes seemed to become hot, and his heart was stuffy. However, Yu Jonghyuk didn't have a proper consciousness and didn't know what this feeling was. What? I think he just moved. Did you see wrong? No, really. All he knew were the words left behind by Kim Dokcha. Imagine happy memories. Warning, warning, the Archangel of Flames is approaching. A warning rang in the air, and the people attached to Yu Jonghyuk were amazed. The first one who screamed was Kim Namwoon. What fuck, why is that crazy bitch here? This is bad, be prepared. Hyunsung, go up and let Master know. As the group scattered, Yu Jonghyuk stood in place. Some disturbed people hit him as they passed by. Imagine happy memories. In the urgent situation, Yu Jonghyuk stared at the huge panel screen in the air. The dazzling angel burning with red flames was moving. Every time the angel's burning sword moved, the ruined area was engulfed in flames. Yu Jonghyuk had a headache. In his empty mind, Yu Jonghyuk had seen the angel. Happy memories. Strangely, the memory was unfamiliar and amicable. It was like a thick wall was in the middle of this distant and cold memory. In his memory, she was a small doll. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is laughing. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is hopping. You won't make any unnecessary sacrifices. It wasn't her memory. It was a record left on someone's wall and he just stole it. They were memories of a world that didn't exist for him. It was fiction. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is touched by your comradeship. Even so, Yu Jonghyuk didn't understand why he remembered this fiction so clearly. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is rubbing her cheek against you. The burning archangel was watching him on the screen. Yu Jonghyuk muttered like a child first learning to speak. Uriel. Chapter 292, Happy Memories 2. It had been approximately 20 minutes since the conversation with Han Soo-young started. I was able to deduce a few pieces of information through the 3 questions. 1. The Han Soo-young of the 1863rd round had contracted with secretive plotter through the Outer World Covenant. 2. Han Soo-young of the 1863rd round might not be the alter ego of the 3rd round person. 3. The Han Soo-young of the 1863rd round had more information and was a bit smarter than the 3rd one. I could combine them and deduce more information. For example, it was likely that this Han Soo-young came from the same 3rd round as me. She also obtained information about the future through methods I didn't know. I spoke to Han Soo-young. Thanks to you, I got some good information. Then all that's left is my last question. Whom do I have to answer? I know enough information about you now. Really? What do you know? Is that your 3rd question? No. Han Soo-young licked her lips and smiled at me. Kim Dokcha of the 3rd round. How am I there? The moment I was about to say that her right to ask a question was over, a cold sensation filled me. How did she know that I came from the 3rd round? Oh, based on your expression, I'm right. I was taken. Don't lie, you knew when you said it. Ahaho, I didn't. My gaze collided with Han Soo-young in the air. Han Soo-young moistened her lower lip and asked, the 3rd round, do I have a screw missing? I took too many memories. You are doing well in your own way. Shouldn't you worry about yourself now? Are you covering for me? Then will you give me some information? You have read all the novel so you can show me this much generosity. I don't know what you're talking about. I was really curious about what type of person would read all of that novel, but you are more than I expected. Kim Dokcha. The 3rd round Han Soo-young was formidable, but this one really wasn't ordinary. I said that I'm the writer. Han Soo-young laughed. You're not the writer. You're too intelligent to write that novel, although you are too stupid to deceive me. Only that reason. I also have a guess about what the author of Ways of Survival is. I almost asked her about the author. However, I couldn't reveal any loopholes in this place that might be a trap. I frowned and asked another question. If you thought I wasn't the writer, why ask the question in the first place? Let's see, why did I? Han Soo-young smiled leisurely. It wasn't that hard to guess. Han Soo-young asked if I had written Ways of Survival. My answer admitted that I knew about Ways of Survival. Damn. I decided to stop talking and ask the most important question. I will ask the last question. Third question ticket has been used. How did you survive up to the 95th scenario? You definitely couldn't have read Ways of Survival until the 95th scenario. Then a deafening noise occurred downstairs. Along with a beeping sound, Lee Hyun-sung hurriedly rushed up the emergency stairs into the suite and shouted, "Captain, it is serious." At the same time that Lee Hyun-sung spoke, the two angels in my arms also sent indirect messages. The constellation Lily Pin of Aquarius is shocked by something. The constellation Commander of the Red Cosmos is warning you. Han Soo-young's eyes flashed. Your flowers. I ignored her and ran towards the outer window. I didn't know exactly what happened. However, if I was right. The shadow of a giant dragon flew outside the window. I wondered if someone had awakened the apocalypse dragon, but it wasn't possible. I gulped as I watched the giant dragon flapping its wings in the sky. Yes, why didn't I see it? Everyone avoid it, I will do it alone. A woman in a white fur coat was leading the giant dragon, Beast Lord Shin Yu-sung. She was no longer a child and was guiding the party in the 95th scenario. The chimera dragon that had evolved beyond a first-grade monster to special grade breathed out. However, the overflowing flames weren't extinguished by the breath. Rather, they blazed even more with the poisonous substance. I knew these flames. The flames were the hell flames that blazed at the bottom of Eden. I knew that the future had changed with Han Soo-young's intervention. However, this 1863rd turn was similar to the 1863rd turn I knew. For example, the name of the last remaining archangel in this fallen world. Uriel. The constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is furious. There was an explosive current, and the outer window of the building was broken entirely. Shin Yu-sung's chimera dragon was falling. I leapt out the window and pierced through the wind. The helpless Shin Yu-sung fell into my arms. Shin Yu-sung looked up at me with surprise. Who? I'll stop the bleeding. I triggered the hit a pressure point skill and struck Shin Yu-sung's neck and arms. Then something waved inside me, and a transparent string popped out from my fingertips. The fourth wall is making a playful expression. I noticed what he was trying to do. But the fourth wall is looking sullen. Chi. I didn't want to tell the people of this world my story. It was strenuous and unfair. There was also nothing they could do to help me. I landed lightly on the ground and put Shin Yu-sung down. A little later, Lee Hyun-sung descended to the ground while carrying Han Soo-young on his shoulder. Shin Yu-sung staggered up and spoke towards Han Soo-young. Captain, I'm sorry. It's okay. Han Soo-young jumped from Lee Hyun-sung's shoulder and patted Shin Yu-sung. I felt very strange as I watched the scene. The existence that was originally supposed to be in that place was Yu Jong-hyuk. Code. Han Soo-young held out a hand, and Lee Ji-hai took the white coat from Kim Nam-woon. Here it is, master. The white coat reduced its size to fit Han Soo-young's body. I didn't know if it was my feeling, but it looked cooler than my coat. Han Soo-young raised the collar of her coat and looked at Gwangwamun. The hell flames were burning in the dust cloud. The burnt constellation screamed helplessly. The remnants of the stars were turning to ask one by one. This was the field where the Archangel of Destruction, Uriel, descended. I watched the flames and asked Han Soo-young, "Do you know the reason why Uriel came here?" "What reason do you think?" "The destruction of Eden." "Your guess is right." The flowers in my pocket trembled to the conversation. The constellation Lily Pin of Aquarius is asking what you mean. The constellation Commander of the Red Cosmos is looking at you. Of course, they didn't know what happened to Eden in the 1863rd round. In fact, I didn't want them to know the truth. There were strange creatures coming from every corner of Gwangwamun where the white flames were burning. The unnamed things. The beings were attracted to Uriel's presence and flocked like moths towards the flames. I asked Han Suyong, "Do you need help?" "Thank you for your help. The Archangel of Flames is difficult to deal with." Yu Jonghyuk waited for my orders and stared at me. Han Suyong continued speaking. "If this continues, someone can die." I bit my lips. This round wasn't my round. Yu Jonghyuk didn't have any colleagues in this round. Yu Jonghyuk, stop Uriel. At my words, Yu Jonghyuk moved. In fact, I hadn't wanted to do this. Uriel discovered Yu Jonghyuk and shouted as she lost her temper. It was natural. One of the reasons why Eden was destroyed was right before her eyes. The furious Uriel unleashed a wave of hell flames, and Yu Jonghyuk's breaking the sky swordsmanship cut off the wave. The terrifying collision generated a tremendous shockwave in the sky. The third round, Yu Jonghyuk and Uriel wouldn't have believed it if they saw the scene. I didn't want them to see it either. I wanted this scene to remain in my head. The vibrations from the flowers in my pocket were becoming worse. The impatient Gabriel couldn't bear it and spoke in her true voice. "Why is Uriel attacking him? You know something, right?" I nodded. "Tell me quickly, otherwise. What good is it to say it?" There was nothing that could be changed. No, maybe it shouldn't be changed. This fight was caused by the events of the 1863rd turn. Uriel's fury was justified, and Yu Jonghyuk had to endure the fury. I watched with clenched fists. Han Suyong spoke in an admiring voice by my side. "You really can control Yu Jonghyuk. I honestly didn't believe it. Can you stop the rest?" "No problem. I'll give you a reward." Han Suyong continued speaking. "Didn't you ask me earlier why I could survive to this scenario?" The character Han Suyong is talking about the story Anticipation Plagiarism. This is the answer. A white light emerged from Han Suyong's body. Her eyes shone brightly as she read the patterns of the incoming monsters. Future sight. There was no doubt. I didn't know the principles, but it was unmistakable, an ability like future sight. It was an ability that wasn't in the original novel. There is nothing new under the sun. Everything that is written is a modification of what has already been written. Han Suyong's story started flowing out in its entirety. She smashed unbroken faith towards the necks of the approaching monsters and laughed. "I'm a first-rate writer. In addition, Ways of Survival is a collection of clichés at best. Do you think it's hard to predict the development? In the end, it's just a repetition of patterns." Han Suyong skillfully read the patterns and hunted the monsters. I watched the scene for a while and said, "Did you survive because of that?" I had to admit that it was an excellent ability. Ways of Survival is a story full of complicated settings. Even if you are a writer, there are things you can do and things you can't do. Yes, you are right. The next moment, a white light rose from Han Suyong's body and countless clones rushed out. 10, 20, 30. In an instant, there were 100 clones holding unbroken faith. If there was only one of me. Han Suyong swung the sword in her hand, and hundreds of Han Suyongs jumped into the battlefield at the same time. They weren't afraid of death and carefully attacked the unnamed things. Han Suyong continued to split apart. However, what if it becomes 2 or 3? The things that one person could do were different from what 100 people could do. The things that 100 people could do were different from what 1,000 people could do. Do you know? Things that will take one person a lifetime to do can be done by 10,000 people in 2 days. The exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, has been activated. Many voices pushed towards me at once, enough to overload me. The voices soon produced a single image. I realized it was the landscape of Han Suyong's mind. Numerous Han Suyongs were meeting there to conceive the world. This is wrong. The next development is like this. I'm sure he'll emerge. No, this is right, Archangel Uriel. Let's do a majority vote. Simulations of the world were drawn by Han Suyong. Perhaps Yu Jonghyuk wasn't the only regressor. In someone's head, millions of worlds were born and broken. It was because a small mistake was made or because there was a very small defect. It was a scene where a story that pursued the extreme piled up. I fell into Han Soo-young's story. The life of this story was sad and beautiful. Some were agreeable developments. Some were developments I hadn't even thought about. I didn't want to admit it, but I had to. Some reproductions went beyond the original. It was an effort to create a perfect single development. This world was the result of Han Soo-young's plan. I raised my head and looked at Yu Jonghyuk. Yu Jonghyuk kept swinging his sword even when his skin was torn and blood splashed. It was Uriel fighting against such a Yu Jonghyuk. No colleagues would die. No destruction would happen. A world where everyone could gather their strengths and reach the last scenario. Damn it, I had no choice but to agree. In order for this world to be completed, Yu Jonghyuk. Han Soo-young stared at me. She seemed to understand what I was thinking. You know it by now. I don't need him in this world. The plagiarist, who dreamt of a world beyond the original, told me. I know how to kill Yu Jonghyuk. Chapter 293, Happy Memories 3. I know how to kill Yu Jonghyuk. Those were Han Soo-young's words. I hesitated for a moment before opening my mouth. You don't have to do something like that. A perfect story isn't the best story. From afar, there was a deafening roar from the collision between Yu Jonghyuk and Uriel. The light that emanated from the sky filled Han Soo-young's white eyes. Yu Jonghyuk has to die in this scenario. That way, the world I am hopping for will be finished. What world are you hopping for? Didn't you look into my head, yet you're still saying this? My voice was buried by another roar. It was a meaningless question in the first place. As Han Soo-young mentioned, I got a glimpse of the world she dreamt of. It was a utopia without any gaps. It was an answer that only a person who digested the original novel in a completely different way could present. I turned my head and watched the battle between Yu Jonghyuk and Uriel. In the world that Han Soo-young dreamt of, the answer for this battle was as followed. The Archangel of Flames will die here. As if waiting, the party members gathered around Uriel and Yu Jonghyuk's battlefield. Lee Jihai was preparing instant kill. Lee Hyun-sung charted up Great Mountain Smash. Kim Nam-woon was untying his bandage and seemed ready to call the abyssal black flame dragon. I grasped unbroken faith. Han Soo-young noticed my movements and glared at me. Wait, you. It was obviously Han Soo-young, not Yu Jonghyuk, who made this world. But so what? The constellation Demon King of Salvation is opening his status. In the first place, this wasn't the story I wanted to read. The small horns that symbolized a demon king rose from my head. I wanted to embody the wings, but it wasn't possible with the imperfect demon world spring. Han Soo-young was surprised but didn't stop me. Perhaps she thought it was impossible to stop the fight with my own strength. I knew it as well. By the way, now I wasn't alone. Gabriel Jaffiel. The constellation Lily Pin of Aquarius is looking at you. The constellation Commander of the Red Cosmos is looking at you. Please help me. The Archangel says that it will require more probability than before. It doesn't matter. The moment I gave permission, the status of the two angels entered me. I felt my skin tearing and something grew. The Archangel's status dwells within you. 6 wings grew from me, just like when I destroyed the constellations. The status of a demon king and an archangel are conflicting inside you. The stories that didn't mix screamed from inside me. An archangel's status was added to the power of a demon king. The wavelength that was impossible with common sense swept through the battlefield. What this status? It was natural to be shocked. Now Uriel was the only archangel to survive in this world, yet the status that could be felt from me belonged to an archangel. The Demon King, Black Mane Lion, is watching you. The Demon King, Devil of Lust and Fury, is looking at you. TL, slight change to Asmodeus modifier. It was surprising that the power of a Demon King and Archangel dwelt in one being. As far as I knew, there was only one existence in the world that could create this type of status in ways of survival. Demon King. Uriel felt my presence and looked over here. The moment I opened my mouth, Gabriel, who descended inside me, struck first. Uriel, stop, what is this? The majesty of the archangel's true voice caused a light of reason to return to Uriel's eyes. Gabriel, are you out of your mind? What are you doing? Gabriel's true voice flowed through me. I looked at Uriel's cold eyes and belatedly realized the mistake. Look, these are the people you like. Yu Jonghyuk and Kim Daksha, you are always talking about them. The moment Gabriel's incarnation approached Uriel, her lips opened. What are you talking about? Black, black, black. The confused Gabriel stiffened. Uriel continued speaking. You are alive, Gabriel. You also groveled to a demon king. What are you saying? Uriel's enormous magic power flooded the Gwanghwamun area. Hell Flame's ignition was running wild and turning it into hell. I was able to see Yu Jonghyuk's coat melting away from the high temperature. The unnamed things were swept away by the aftereffects and scattered into pieces of meat. I shouted, Gabriel. The dazed Gabriel belatedly handed his strength to me. I will hear the explanation later. To be honest, I wasn't confident in explaining. They wouldn't be able to fathom what happened to Eden in the 1863rd round. Once the archangels of the third round knew the information, I didn't know what type of storm I would be swept up in or the psychologically damage Gabriel would receive. Because Gabriel of the 1863rd round betrayed Eden. Yu Jonghyuk. The moment I called out, Yu Jonghyuk cut the flames using breaking the sky swordsmanship. I plunged into the flames. 3 petals from Gabriel and Jophiel scattered in the air. There was a huge charge, and something rose inside me. I took advantage of the reaction from the colliding magic power to instantly approach Uriel. I'm sorry, Uriel. I grabbed Uriel's head with both hands. The power of the white pure star energy and the status of the archangels and demon king struck Uriel's head. Uriel made a pained frown, but Uriel's momentum didn't decrease at all. Rather, her flames were encroaching towards me little by little. The high heat caused my wings and horns to melt slightly. I was the one who groaned first. This was the power of Eden's strongest combat angel. Uriel smiled brutally and called the hell flames to her hands, the hottest flames in the world. The moment that sharp blade of flames aimed at my heart. Jophiel. Huge sparks appeared at my fingertips, and Uriel's body was surrounded by a circular restraint reminiscent of a halo. Uriel cried out with shock as the white constraints bound her. Uriel's status was reduced in an instant, and the flames suddenly extinguished. Uriel was one of the most powerful archangels in Eden. No other angel could match her in fighting demons. However, what if the opponent was also an archangel? Archangel Jophiel. Unlike the other angels who focused on demon eradication, Jophiel had one more special ability: confinement of good and evil. Uriel's skill that was used to hunt fallen angels exerted strength against Uriel. Uriel tried to escape, but the restraint tightened. Uriel struggled before finally giving up on rebelling and collapsed. The archangel trapped by the constraints would fall into a deep sleep for a week. I hugged the sleeping Uriel and moved out of the fire with Yu Jonghyuk. I emerged from the smoke and saw the party members looking this way. Someone stared with astonishment, while others felt admiration. Someone else was staring at me with faint hostility. I watched Han Soo-young. This is something that wasn't present in the world of your dreams. Uriel being dead or not has no impact on the big picture. You've seen it, so shouldn't you know? My visualization is perfect. Her white coat fluttered as Han Soo-young walked towards me. She soon reached my nose and looked up at me. She glanced at the burned angel wings and broken demon horns and asked, Kim Daksha, what world do you want? You have read the story to the end, and there must be a world you want. I knew Han Soo-young's words very well. What is the world that I want? They were the very words that Yu Jonghyuk always used when recruiting new colleagues. I told Han Soo-young, I'm not your colleague. I need you to complete this story. Han Soo-young continued while pointing to Yu Jonghyuk. Don't you also need the completion of a new story? It seemed that she knew why I came to this world. I examined the faces of the party members one by one. Lee Hyun-sung, Lee Ji-hai, Lee Xiaohua, Shin Yu-sung, Kim Nam-woon. So far, there was no round where all of them had survived up to this point. However, what's new about this story? I was watching Yu Jong-hyuk, the only person not selected by this world. He repeated thousands of rounds to save this world, but this time, he had to die for the world. Han Soo-young's world was also a world where someone must die in the end. There were countless other worlds like that, not just Han Soo-young's world. You have read part of the original, changed the development, and placed the name of another person in the place of the protagonist. Some reproductions might surpass the original. However, they could never be the original. Do you know what they call such an act? I wanted to have a relaxed smile, but now I wasn't in the mood. Han Soo-young stared at me with blazing eyes. This isn't the round you were in. Don't talk nonsense. Han Soo-young no longer listened to me and turned away. I'll give you 3 days. You better decide by then. Help me or don't help me. That's all I want to hear. The party members followed Han Soo-young and entered the building one by one. Lee Hyun-sung helped Lee Xiaohua transport patients. Lee Ji-hai and Kim Nam-woon glanced at me before looking away. This wasn't my round. The people in my round were waiting for me, and I could go back if I killed Yu Jong-hyuk. I looked at Yu Jong-hyuk. There were holes in his coat as Yu Jong-hyuk stood there with foolish eyes. However, was that really all I had to do? Han Soo-young was sweating when she opened her eyes in the darkness. There were faint sparks around her body. Her entire body was freezing cold. Han Soo-young took a deep breath and rose from her spot. She turned on her smartphone and opened her novel file. SSSSS grade infinite regressor. Yu Jung-hyun thought about it. I'm afraid. Is it just up to here? These were the contents of the saved pages. Nevertheless, Han Soo-young read them. She read them again and again, as if the contents would be blown away if she didn't. How long did she read? The sparks around her started shrinking. She barely managed a sigh. If she had been a bit later, her existence itself would be swallowed up by the sparks. It wasn't the first time. It was the probability storm gnawing at my memories. It wasn't known if this was a side effect of the excessive use of Avatar or related to ways of survival. The star stream is watching Incarnation, Han Soo-young. Han Soo-young bit her lips and relaxed her body. Her shoulders and wrists, hardened by the side effects, were checked one by one. She could feel the eyes of countless constellations on her. Han Soo-young thought, look as much as you like. I didn't start this just to end here. After warming up, the coldness in her bones were gone. Han Soo-young put on a coat and glanced out the window. Kim Dokja and her party members could be seen. They were awkward on the first day, but after a few days, they were chatting. It was strange. Those who had gone through 94 scenarios and were filled with distrust quickly opened their hearts to him. Kim Dokja, the variable that appeared at the end of this plan. Why did secretive plotter send another covenant at this point? Han Soo-young didn't know the answer. She just knew that she had to use Kim Dokja. Yu Jong-hyuk was standing blankly in a corner of the square. Han Soo-young watched for a while before jumping out the window. Han Soo-young landed beside Yu Jong-hyuk and opened her mouth. It has been 2 days. Yu Jong-hyuk didn't answer. Han Soo-young slowly watched Yu Jong-hyuk. His blank eyes seemed to hear nothing. Han Soo-young stared into his eyes and suddenly approached him. You really aren't conscious. Han Soo-young's hand grabbed Yu Jong-hyuk's chin. Yu Jong-hyuk didn't react. How funny. I can't believe this is happening. Did you forget that you promised to die? At this close distance, Yu Jong-hyuk's face was covered with scars. They were traces of a lonelier battle than any other round. Han Soo-young looked at such a Yu Jong-hyuk. She felt both sympathetic and angry. Han Soo-young removed her hand from Yu Jong-hyuk's chin and pulled out a cigarette. Smoke appeared as she lit it up. In the distance, the people surrounding Kim Dokja shouted at something he said. Han Soo-young blew out smoke. The world is unfair. Some people find it easy to get along with others using a few words, while some people egress so much and feel out of place. Didn't you write down some good memories for me? You could have done enough. No, it's fine. There was no way you could do it. Han Soo-young stepped on the cigarette ash that fell. Don't blame me for killing you when you don't remember. I did everything you asked me to do. Han Soo-young walked towards her party members. Yu Jong-hyuk watched Han Soo-young moving away with empty eyes. A dim light was returning to Yu Jong-hyuk's blank eyes. Chapter 294, Happy Memories 4. 2 days had passed since I started staying at Han Soo-young's headquarters. In the meantime, I had to concentrate on a few things. One was to reveal exactly what Han Soo-young meant by the death of Yu Jong-hyuk. The second was to find out what Han Soo-young ultimately wanted to achieve through it. Either way, finding out wasn't easy. This wasn't the only problem. It has really destroyed our Eden. I looked at Gabriel, who was exuding a ferocious spirit. That's right. Didn't you hear anything about it from the third round Metatron? The scribe knows about the destruction of Eden. I nodded. If you go back, ask him yourself. Of course, that's if you can go back safely. The stems of Gabriel and Jophiel started to shake. I thought they were angry with me, but they seemed to be talking to each other. I pulled out the Uriel doll. She was caught by the confinement of good and evil and couldn't use her strength for the next 5 days. The fourth wall is looking at you. Maybe I could borrow the power of the fourth wall to give her memories of the third round. However, the idea that Uriel would be moved by my memories was just a fantasy. Maybe after seeing the memories, Uriel would say, "Black, black, so what?" The memories of the third round would sound like a novel to Uriel, who had lived through the third round. Kim Dokjus Si, are you going to hunt with us? I looked up and saw Lee Hyun-sung standing there with steel gauntlets on. Is it okay if I go with you? Yes, well, there is no meaning in identifying a picked-up bullet. I smiled at Lee Hyun-sung's words. Whether it was the third round or the 1863rd round, the strange analogies were still there. I calculated how many times Lee Hyun-sung must have been confined in the guardhouse so far. Your understanding of the character Lee Hyun-sung has increased. The character Lee Hyun-sung shows a weak liking towards you. I recalled the first scenario and suddenly felt a bit distracted. I added a sentence to alleviate Lee Hyun-sung's wariness. Shouldn't you be more vigilant? I am Yu Jong-hyuk's companion. Captain didn't say anything, and, as a matter of fact, I feel that Dokju SSI isn't a bad person. I guess this is the intuition I gained after 94 scenarios. Throughout the novel, Lee Hyun-sung's intuition was mostly off the mark. Whenever Lee Hyun-sung said this, I used to think that Yu Jong-hyuk would be stabbed in the back. Hey, you came. Let's take a look at your skills. Those who went out to hunt together were Kim Nam-woon and Lee Ji-hai. Lee Ji-hai was covered with a big gray hood and looked at me in a displeased manner. Come quickly, we're going to start. I followed the party members out of the headquarters. The purpose of this hunt was to clean up the unnamed things around the headquarters and collect the items. Of course, I knew the real reason why Han Soo-young ordered this hunt. There are 2 ahead of you. One is a tentacled species and the other is a composite species. Han Dong-hoon's message was heard and Lee Ji-hai pulled out her sword. She triggered instant kill to defeat all the tentacles, and then Kim Nam-woon burned the main body with his black flames. I felt it when I read the original, but the 2 of them were really well matched. There was a terrible scream as the monster turned to ashes and Kim Nam-woon approached Lee Ji-hai. Nice attack. Kim Nam-woon raised his right hand towards Lee Ji-hai with a cool face. Lee Ji-hai aimed her sword at Kim Nam-woon with cold eyes. The sword pierced past Kim Nam-woon's cheek and penetrated the tentacle that was wriggling around as the unnamed thing struggled with the flames. Lee Ji-hai moved towards the next prey. Kim Nam-woon chased after her. Hey, let's go together. Once Gil-young and Yu-sung grew up, would they be a duel like this? I might see such a scene if I went back. Dokjus Si. Yes, I'll take the other side. I hurriedly pulled out Unbroken Faith and activated Way of the Wind. Some flying tentacles penetrated during an unguarded moment. It was a bit tricky to deal with the unnamed things when I deliberately wasn't using electrification. Kyukuk, you're weak. Kim Nam-woon, who had the black flames in both hands, started to beat up the unnamed things with a careless smile. Watch and learn. Certainly, it was a great combat force. The present Kim Nam-woon was able to draw out half the power of the abyssal black flame dragon. I quietly cheered on Kim Nam-woon. You're great, it is coming again. Halahat, give it to me. Wow, no matter how good you are, isn't it hard? What are you talking about? Halahat, die. Hey, there's that one over there. Kim Nam-woon belatedly noticed something and his eyebrows twitched. Lee Hyun-sung standing nearby was smiling. In the distance, Lee Ji-hai caught a monster and clicked her tongue like he was pitiful. The moment Kim Nam-woon's expression distorted and he raised his fist towards me, I told him, Lee Ji-hai doesn't like pretentiousness. Kim Nam-woon's face turned as white as his hair. His eyes shook like an earthquake had occurred. In fact, the one who had the biggest reaction was Lee Hyun-sung, whose eyes widened. This guy passed through every round without noticing. Kim Nam-woon glanced between Lee Ji-hai and I before stammering. How do you know that? It would be strange if I didn't know. Dye your hair first and get rid of the bandages. Replace them with half gloves on both sides. After the hunt, don't say things like nice attack. The constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon hates you. It will be more helpful if you act like the guy behind me. Kim Nam-woon blinked as he looked at the person behind me. Yu Jong-hyuk was standing there blankly. His coat was crooked and he hadn't washed himself, but he couldn't hide his good looks. That person is evil, still he looks cool. Delusional demon, Kim Nam-woon muttered. I answered with a smile. He isn't too bad, he has good parts. Ha, you must be talking about someone else. That reminds me, how did you end up as Yu Jong-hyuk's companion? Kim Nam-woon watched me suspiciously, and Lee Hyun-sung spoke up. I heard that Dr. SSI is from another world. Maybe Han Soo-young had talked about me. Kim Nam-woon looked surprised and pointed at me. Different worlds, like parallel universes. It is similar. I admired the fact that Kim Nam-woon knew about parallel universes when he had no biology knowledge. Obviously, this round was different from the round I remembered. That's why I haven't seen you so far, so why did you come here? You're excited. Unfortunately, I can't tell you. Sheesh, then what am I doing in your world? Am I a leader? You're dead. Kim Nam-woon's face paled again. I'm joking. You're building a Gundam there. You are very happy. Gundam, oh. Lee Ji-hai came back and hit the back of Kim Nam-woon's head. Why are you messing around? Pick up the items. No. I watched Kim Nam-woon hurriedly picking up items after Lee Ji-hai and thought, maybe I shouldn't have killed him in the first scenario. Kim Nam-woon, who was following Lee Ji-hai and picking up items, turned to me and whispered, Excuse me, I have something to ask. What? Can you lend me that coat for a minute? What was I saying? I see you. Kim Nam-woon grumbled and started picking up the items again. Lee Ji-hai nagged him and Lee Hyun-sung chuckled. It was a peaceful sight. In the midst of this peace, I was strongly reminded of my world. There was no Jung Hee-won here, no Yu Sanga or Lee Gil-young. Yes, Han Myung-go as well, thus I had to go back. Not long after, we collected all the items around us. I looked at the items I collected and smiled. There it was, one of the 5 swords that were the key to clear the 95th scenario. Perhaps Han Soo-young knew that one of the swords was in the vicinity. However, I was surprised the moment I held the sword. Excuse me, Hyun-sung SSI. Huh? Did Han Soo-young tell you to collect this sword? Lee Hyun-sung glanced at the sword in my hand and replied, Oh, that's right. We are looking for that sword. The 95th scenario was a scenario where 5 swords were the key. A scenario where the sealed apocalypse dragon was released through the key 5 swords. But this sword. A sense of discomfort passed through my head. I looked up at the sky and saw the apocalypse dragon's sealing ball heading this way. Sleeping inside the dark sphere was the worst ruined dragon in ways of survival. Originally, Yu Jonghyuk was supposed to liberate the dragon and gain the giant story Liberator of the Apocalypse Dragon, entering the final scenario. At this moment, Kim Dokja realized how to kill Yu Jonghyuk. The hand holding the hilt trembled. In addition, Han Soo-young was thinking exactly the same thing as him. Throughout the day, Kim Dokja read Ways of Survival again and again. He read the pages he had already read and checked if there were any lines he missed. Kim Dokja seemed to find something, or perhaps he didn't find it. He looked down at his smartphone, grabbed his head several times, and even sighed. Noisy. Stop talking. Sometimes he scolded the fourth wall. In any case, Kim Dokja tried hard. It was an effort to change something, an effort that perhaps no one would understand. Soon a small resolution filled Kim Dokja's eyes. It wasn't a resolution that could accumulate in 1 or 2 days. It was a resolution that only a person who had read a story for a long time could have. With that resolution, Kim Dokja continuously read Ways of Survival. He read, and read it again. How many times did he read? Kim Dokja's eyes, shining like stars, dimmed little by little. Kim Dokja fell into a shallow sleep. Yu Jonghyuk stared at the scene with empty eyes. The back of the weary Kim Dokja. A snoring sound came out at regular intervals. There were very small sparks as Yu Jonghyuk's eyes recovered. Killing intent filled the blank eyes, and this killing intent was aimed at precisely one person. Yu Jonghyuk quietly moved the heaven-shaking sword. He didn't make a sound as he approached and aimed a sword at Kim Dokja's neck. Ha do not do su ch a th-ing. Yu Jonghyuk frowned. The fourth wall caused sparks to fly, as if going to wake up Kim Dokja straight away. Yu Jonghyuk sent a message to the illusionary wall using sound transmission. Don't wake him up. I will cut off his head straight away if you do. The sparks produced by the fourth wall rapidly reduced. Yu Jonghyuk didn't remove the sword, and the fourth wall drew characters in the air. Wh at do you want? Yu Jonghyuk didn't say anything. It seemed like he was finding his words or he didn't know what to say. At this time, the fourth wall let out bizarre laughter. Aha, I understand. Are you curious? Yu Jonghyuk still didn't answer, and the fourth wall laughed like it knew everything. The letters of the fourth wall started to increase. Gold letters soon filled the room. Yu Jonghyuk stared at the letters drifting around him and reached out for one of them. The letters seemed to respond to his hand and started to speak. My name is Dokja. I usually introduce myself to people like this, and then the following misunderstanding would occur. It was the story of a world he had never experienced. The fourth wall giggled. Varian T-Rays Ting. Yu Jonghyuk quietly listened to the story. This lasted until the night was deep, and then the faint light of dawn was seen. By the time the sleeping Kim Dokja woke up, Yu Jonghyuk was leaning against the wall with blank eyes. I fell asleep, damn. Kim Dokja stood up with disheveled hair and picked up his smartphone and sword. He looked out the window and saw the troops of the headquarters that had already gathered. They were gathered to clear the 95th scenario. At the center of the party, Han Soo-young in the white coat was looking this way. Today was the day that Incarnation Yu Jonghyuk would die. Chapter 295, Reader and Writer 1. It was noon when the march began. It was an army containing 200 elite incarnations. As numerous constellations watched, Lee Hyun-sung raised a horn at the front of the army. The item, Battlefield Horn, is activated. The morale of the Allies has increased significantly. The attack power of the Allies has increased slightly. As expected of Han Soo-young, she had already prepared such consumables. Lee Hyun-sung blew the horn once again and the incarnations cheered. Everyone seemed excited. Shin Yu-sung glanced at me and spoke politely. Thank you for saving me last time. Ah yes, it was nothing. Shin Yu-sung smiled at my words. She was raised to be kind and polite, unlike Kim Nam-woon. I glanced to the side and saw Han Soo-young making an unknown smile. I don't think Shin Yu-sung grew up like this because someone raised her. Yu-sung was originally a good kid. Kim Dokja SI is also participating in this scenario. Nope, I'm not qualified. Ah yes, I'm sorry. I heard that we can get a giant story if we clear this scenario. I didn't feel regret. It would be great if I could acquire Liberator of the Apocalypse Dragon here as the second giant story. However, this wasn't the direction I wanted. The giant story I wanted was in the third round. In the front, Lee Xiaohua was wiping sweat from Lee Hyunsung's forehead. Lee Hyunsung smiled weakly. I'm nervous. I don't know if we can do it well. It's going to be fine. We've done a good job so far. I could hear Kim Namwoon and Lee Jihai's voices behind me. Hey, Lee Jihai, what will you do at the end of this scenario? Well, it is clearing another scenario. How long will you only clear the scenario? Sometimes we need to have some fun. Come play with me after this scenario is finished. Kim Namwoon was watching Lee Jihai's eyes while wearing the coat I lent him. As I told him, gloves were on both hands. His hair was still white and there were bandages wrapped around his arms. Then thunder struck in the sky. The armies of the nebulae participating in this scenario were approaching in the distance. They were nebulae I had already encountered and nebulae I hadn't met. Han Suyung's companions were strong enough, but the number was inadequate to deal with all the enemies. Han Suyung stepped towards Lee Hyunsung and declared, "We have only one objective. It is to liberate the dragon sealed in the sphere." Her white coat fluttered as Han Suyung kept speaking. As you know, liberation the apocalypse dragon will destroy the peninsula. However, as long as we have completed the clear conditions, we can move on to the next stage. Then no one on this earth will die. The determination of the incarnations solidified at Han Suyung's declaration, and they shouted again. They chanted Han Suyung's name. It was a somewhat familiar sight. All of this was once done by Yu Jonghyuk. The 95th scenario, the second coming of the Apocalypse Dragon. This was a scenario to awaken the Apocalypse Dragon that was sealed at the time of Eden's fall. It was accomplished by collecting 5 swords scattered around the world and plugging them into the keyhole of the seal. In fact, Yu Jonghyuk accomplished this scenario and gained the giant story. Let's go to the next scenario, Han Suyung shouted, and the Incarnation army moved towards the sealed sphere. However, enemies could be seen running from the other side. Take the sword, we must take the keys. Over there, Han Suyung. They were the incarnations and constellations hiding all over the Korean peninsula. They wished to acquire the story by awakening the apocalypse dragon. Stop them. The people beside me scattered and pulled out their weapons. Lee Hyunsung, Lee Jihai and Shin Yusung ran while emitting magic power. Had come, Abyss Dragon. Kim Namwoon was also jumping into the battlefield. His blackening reached the peak. The Kim Namwoon of this world was different from the Kim Namwoon I knew. Still, Kim Namwoon tearing all the enemies approaching him was clearly the delusional demon I knew. I didn't know what terrible things he had done to reach this point. Then Han Suyung pulled out several swords. The star relics gave off a brilliant light. They were the keys to be used to clear this scenario. 4 swords. They were still lacking one to complete the key. Kim Doksha, give me your erendite. You knew. I smiled as I pulled out a sword, the Dragon Slayer erendite. This was the key to ending this scenario. Then send Yu Jonghyuk to the seal. I stared at Han Suyung after hearing her words. Han Suyung was smiling. Didn't I say I would kill him? Have you forgotten? I didn't like the look in her eyes. At this moment, I realized something. You killing Yu Jonghyuk is the condition for your outer world covenant. Han Suyung's eyes flashed. Yes. That's why you're fixated on Yu Jonghyuk. Quickly give me that sword. The cold texture of erendite was felt. In fact, I knew what Han Suyung was going to do. Holy Sword Escalon, Thunder Sword Graham, Dragon Sword Riddle, Old Dragon Sword Neagling and the Dragon Slaying Sword erendite. I called out the names of the sword, and Han Suyung's expression strangely stiffened. There is one problem. One of the swords I just mentioned has a different character. What are you doing now? You're fooling the people. Don't talk nonsense. Let's go to the next scenario. I continued speaking. Don't pretend. You don't want to clear this scenario. Han Soo-young's eyes shook. Her eyes were filled with something close to madness. The four swords were shining white beside her. Continue. You don't want to free the apocalypse dragon. It is actually the opposite. You are going to seal this earth with the apocalypse dragon. Why do you think that? I pointed to an object in Han Soo-young's hand. You have Neegling. This sword is the only sword with a different attribute. The 5 swords that made up the 95th scenario were all related to dragon-slaying stories. Only one sword, the old dragon sword Neegling, was different. That sword is a failed dragon-slaying sword. If you use that sword as a key, the seal won't be released. It is actually the opposite. An improper key would strengthen the seal, not release it. The seal would realize it wasn't yet time for liberation and become a bigger and stronger barrier. It would soon cover the entire planet with a seal. The time here will stop and Earth will be sealed with the apocalypse dragon. It will remain forever fixed in the 95th scenario. I couldn't read the expression of Han Soo-young, who had bowed her head. I continued speaking. This is how you will kill Yu Jonghyuk. I looked back at Yu Jonghyuk. Yu Jonghyuk was watching me with blank eyes. As long as there was his sponsor, Yu Jonghyuk wouldn't die. Once he died, he would return again and again. However, what if there was eternal sleep in the world? An eternal sleep with no dreams and no waking up. Such a thing was no different from death. You have decided to seal Yu Jonghyuk forever in this turn. Yu Jonghyuk would be trapped in the seal and fall into a sleep that no one could wake up from. He wouldn't regress or suffer anymore. He would fall asleep eternally, and a new world line wouldn't be created. This was the death of Yu Jonghyuk. It was the death of a regressor. I turned and saw Han Soo-young smiling faintly. Better than expected. How did you know? I never showed you exactly what my next plan was. You didn't show me. I had seen Han Soo-young's mind. I saw the world she dreamt and read the information she had shown. Obviously, almost everything was perfect. However, there was one crucial thing missing from the world. There were no signs of Black Square in your story. The end of all the scenarios, Black. However, not everyone reached Black. Some stories ended without even going near Black. Thunder was heard from the sky to the west. Rain started to fall from the dark clouds. The voices of those shouting in the distance and the true voices of the constellations engaged in battle came out. Lee Hyun-sung, Lee Sealhwa, and Lee Jihai. They were all desperate. It was in order to survive and go to the next scenario. It was Han Soo-young who brought them here. Is this the conclusion you came up with? Han Soo-young was now trying to finish their story. That's right. This is the end of the world that I thought of. If it was going to end this way, why did you save everyone? Why stick to such a perfect development? Han Soo-young didn't answer. You betrayed them. If Han Soo-young's plan succeeded, all of them would never reach the end. They would fall asleep in the eternity of this 95th scenario. Han Soo-young stared at the 4 swords floating around her with emotionless eyes. The end of the world isn't necessarily bound to Black. This will make Earth safer. Neither Yu Jonghyuk or the other constellations will know how to unlock the reinforced seal of the apocalypse dragon. It is a deception. Some call it salvation. Then the companions who have trusted you so. In any case, this isn't a world that I made. Tragically, I understood Han Soo-young's mind. I wanted to return to the original world because this world wasn't my world. Is this the price of the outer world covenant that you received? In exchange for killing Yu Jonghyuk, you will get the power to make your own world. A powerful air started flowing from Han Soo-young's body. She intended not to waste any more time. Give me the sword, Kim Doksha. This is the best way for everyone. Yu Jonghyuk wanted it. The plagiarist who wanted to go beyond the original probably knew. To go beyond the original, you had to get out of the original. This was impossible as long as she was a plagiarist. I laughed. I don't intend to kill Yu Jonghyuk. What are you saying? Are you going to give up on the outer world covenant? Of course not. As soon as I finished talking, Han Soo-young moved. Yu Jonghyuk, block it. I called out, and Yu Jonghyuk stepped forward to block Han Soo-young's swords. I put away the shining erendite and pulled out another sword. It was the 4-yin demonic beheading sword, an item that cut off the links between a constellation and incarnation. I focused my attention on the sword as I stared at Yu Jonghyuk. The star relic, 4-yin demonic beheading sword, is opening up its power. Han Soo-young's eyes widened as she confirmed the energy dwelling in the sword. Don't tell me you. Death had a variety of meanings in the star stream. For example, my fate in the past. It is useless Kim Dokja, that method. At that time I died as Incarnation Kim Dokja, but Constellation Kim Dokja lived. Then what about Yu Jonghyuk? Gabriel Jaffiel, please help me. The constellation Lily Pin of Aquarius is looking at you. The constellation Commander of the Red Cosmos is looking at you. I heard Han Soo-young yelling, but I didn't listen. My senses were concentrated on a single black thread rising above Yu Jonghyuk's head. It was Yu Jonghyuk's link that I could see using the 4-yin demonic beheading sword. No one in Ways of Survival had ever tried this method. However, if I succeeded, if I could break this link for even a moment, I might be able to save Yu Jonghyuk. Yu Jonghyuk, keep your mind straight. Now Yu Jonghyuk had a sufficient amount of stories to become a constellation. If the connection was temporarily disconnected and he got a new story from this scenario, he might be reborn as Constellation Yu Jonghyuk. It meant he would die as an incarnation. This way, Yu Jonghyuk might not regress even if he died. I might be able to go back to the third round without having to seal Yu Jonghyuk. The power of a demon king and the archangel's power was imbued in the 4-yin demonic beheading sword. The opponent was Yu Jonghyuk's sponsor, whose identity was unknown. This much power would be needed to break the link. I swung the 4-yin demonic beheading sword, then I did it again, one more time, again and again, repeatedly striking. The huge shockwaves from the link swept away the surrounding constellations and incarnations. Han Soo-young couldn't easily approach through this storm. How many times did I hit him? Finally, I heard a sound. It was the sound of the 4-yin demonic beheading sword breaking in half. I looked at Yu Jonghyuk's link that didn't have any scratches. The constellation Lily Pin of Aquarius is feeling an unknown fear. The constellation Commander of the Red Cosmos is astonished. At this moment, I felt the vast universe staring at me. I couldn't imagine the origin or fathom the enormity. The sponsor of Incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk, is looking at you. Chapter 296, Reader and Writer 2. Along with the extreme dizziness, it felt like the entire history of my life had been destroyed. Yu Jonghyuk's sponsor. I didn't know exactly who it was. It couldn't be described or explained. I could just see it. It was very powerful and pure. It was like the original circle of desire. A baby's laughter echoed in my ears, and by the time I came to my senses, half of the 4-yin demonic beheading sword had fallen to the ground. Yu Jonghyuk's link wasn't broken. I had failed. I turned my head and saw Han Soo-young approaching me. Did you see it? Han Soo-young was making a strange smile. At her waist, the 4-yin demonic beheading sword was shaking just like mine. You already tried it. Of course, I tried it on a much larger scale than you. I borrowed the power of a nebula. Perhaps Hyung had confirmed the reality of the sponsor in a form more clearer than me. What the hell is it? Let's see, I don't know exactly. Still, don't you have a bit of a guess? I didn't answer. Han Soo-young continued speaking. Now your last plan has failed. There is no other way. As I told you before, Yu Jonghyuk agreed to this plan. Yu Jonghyuk agreed. You can read thoughts. Haven't you tried reading that guy's thoughts? There was a clanging sound as Yu Jonghyuk hit Han Soo-young's sword. I watched Yu Jonghyuk's back that was blocking the front of me. Obviously, I could use Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint Stage 2 on him now. I hesitated for a moment before triggering the skill. The exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, has been activated. Your understanding of this person is sufficient, and the second stage of Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is activated. Yu Jonghyuk's thoughts were heard in my head. Most of the words floated in the air like dust because his consciousness was deeply sunken. One or two fell beside me like snow, and then there was a flood of heavy snow. I want to die. I want to die. I want to die. I was currently looking at the inner self of a human who was repressed in the text of ways of survival. Han Soo-young approached me as I stood there idly. Her hair grazed my chin as she reached into my coat and took out erendite. Han Soo-young laughed as she finally collected 5 swords and stepped away from me. Yu Jonghyuk stood blankly. Once Han Soo-young inserted all the swords, Yu Jonghyuk would be trapped forever. Then he would get what he wanted. This was the ending of this world. At this time, I heard something in my ear. It was a very small voice. It was a very small voice among the countless voices. I placed the broken 4-yin demonic beheading sword on my shoulder and ran towards the distant Han Soo-young. Her coat was crumpled by the strong grip, and Han Soo-young turned her head with a frown. You still want to come? I watched Yu Jonghyuk. I heard it clearly. I was still listening. I want to live. It was very faint, but it was a voice. He was clearly speaking. Han Soo-young threw off my hand in an irritated manner. Forget saying any good things. Yu Jonghyuk has to die in order to achieve what you and I want. You don't know what I want. I grasped unbroken faith. The blade cried out, and Han Soo-young stepped away from me with a hardened face. What the hell are you trying to do? There is no other way for you. That's right. There was no way. The Outer World Covenant meant I had no way to save Yu Jonghyuk. There was no such thing in ways of survival that I read all night. There is a way. However, there was another way. Yu Jonghyuk. At my shout, Yu Jonghyuk ran like a lightning bolt and dealt a blow to Han Soo-young. In this short gap, Yu Jonghyuk was able to take 4 swords from Han Soo-young. Holy Sword Escalon, Thunder Sword Graham, Dragon Sword Riddle, the Dragon Slayer Erendite. They were all swords with dragon-killing stories. They were the key swords in this scenario. Now Yu Jonghyuk, free the Apocalypse Dragon. What is this nonsense? The angry Han Soo-young rushed towards Yu Jonghyuk. I bumped into Han Soo-young's body and rolled with her. Han Soo-young kicked me while shouting. There are only 4 swords. You will never clear the scenario. No, there is one more sword. I pulled out a sword, the grass-cutting sword. It was a sword obtained from Yamada no Orochi in Peaceland. I used the grass-cutting sword to kill the shadow of Yamada no Orochi, and it inherited the story of slaying a dragon. Take it, Yu Jonghyuk. Yu Jonghyuk received the sword that was fired with Way of the Wind. Finally, all 5 dragon-slaying swords were gathered. Han Soo-young shouted, "You crazy bastard!" There was a conflict between the status that Han Soo-young and I emitted. I activated electrification while pouring the blue-white energy towards Han Soo-young. Han Soo-young was pushed by the magic power and exclaimed, "Everyone, stop Yu Jonghyuk!" Han Soo-young's shout caused the eyes of the scattered party members to concentrate on Yu Jonghyuk at the same time. I'll catch him. Kim Nam-woon discovered Yu Jonghyuk first and flew. Damn, I knew you were going to betray. Lee Ji-hai and Lee Hyun-sung belatedly came out. 3 of the 100 most powerful people in ways of survival ran towards Yu Jonghyuk at once. Han Soo-young emitted a formidable aura and screamed at me. Do you know what you're doing now, if this scenario is cleared? Han Soo-young's following words weren't heard. I watched Yu Jonghyuk's back as he headed towards the seal. Kim Dokja thought about the 3rd round Yu Jonghyuk, who was silently going through the scenarios. The sword wielded by Lee Ji-hai cut at Yu Jonghyuk's back. He thought of Yu Sanga and Han Soo-young of the 3rd round. Lee Hyun-sung grabbed Yu Jonghyuk's wrist, while Kim Nam-woon aimed the black flames at Yu Jonghyuk's face. He thought for a long time about Jung Hee-won and the children, Lee Gil-young and Shin Yu-sung. Yu Jonghyuk didn't back down. His coat was torn and he moved forward while bleeding. Lee Ji-hai and Lee Hyun-sung were swept away by the breaking the sky swordsmanship. He thought of Lee Ji-hai, who called him garbage, and Lee Hyun-sung, who lost his casings. I wanted to see it. Thus Kim Dokja finally made up his mind. I told Han Suyong, I won't go back to the third round. What nonsense are you saying, you now? I will stay here and see the ending with the people here. The end of this world wasn't the ending I wanted. It might take a very long time. Maybe I will never be able to go back. Even so, it was an ending. Secretive Plotter isn't the only outer god of this world. There will be another way to go back, clearing the scenario and moving towards the end. Don't talk nonsense. It doesn't matter what you do. You don't know the end of this story anyway. I don't know. I spoke as I followed Yu Jonghyuk soaring towards the ceiling sphere. I'll create it myself. Han Suyong leapt towards the sky and fired a black spear at Yu Jonghyuk's back. I threw myself in front of the spear instead. The shock hurt, but I didn't retreat. Han Suyong's eyes were filled with a completely different killing intent. Shall we do it now? Han Suyong directly threatened me. The constellation, director of the false last act, is looking at you. Laughter emerged. Like me, Han Suyong of this round didn't have a sponsor. She was a constellation like me. She even held the same unbroken faith in my hand. Unbroken faith shone with a black ether that was much stronger than mine. The moment the black blade appeared in front of me, I used the white pure star energy and blocked the blow. It was obviously blocked, but the bones of my hand were distorted from the impact. Han Suyong's body started to divide. Avatar. Numerous clones leapt towards Yu Jonghyuk and I at the same time. I moved to stop them. Jafil's Unit 503 was qualified to stop the clones. Jafil. However, Archangel Jafil didn't answer. I could guess why. Perhaps she didn't like my current choice. The Archangels wanted to go back to the original world. The next moment, the story person who is loved by an Archangel is triggered. The constellation, Lily Pin of Aquarius, feels favorable towards you. Archangel Gabriel sent me an indirect message. At the same time, Gabriel's preference scale was created in one hand. The constellation, Lily Pin of Aquarius, is looking at you. The constellation, Commander of the Red Cosmos, is confused. I didn't know why Gabriel chose to help me. The only thing I was certain of was that I desperately needed her help. Han Suyong ran and shouted, "A reader shouldn't disturb me. The owner of the story is a writer. The world should end here." You aren't the owner of this story either. That type of ending is only in your world. I cut through dozens of avatars of Han Suyong and flew towards the dark clouds. Two unbroken faiths met in the air. The ether of the divine nature and ether of the dark nature clashed together and produced a strange tone. Along with the powerful explosion, my electrification was broken. I rolled on the ground while covered in wounds. Most of Han Suyong's avatars had disappeared, but she was still going strong. As the angry Han Suyong ran through the dust towards me, I shouted, "Go, Yu Jonghyuk." Yu Jonghyuk's body leapt into the air, and he finally reached the sealed sphere. The 5 keys have been inserted in the sealing sphere. Han Suyong shouted, "No." 5 swords were inserted into the huge sphere. There was the sound of the keyhole being turned. Someone has released the seal of the Apocalypse Dragon. The scenario clear conditions have been met. The sleeping dragon's power was awakening. The entire sky flickered like a giant light bulb. The sky was half divided into night and day. I felt the owner of a giant story waking up. The constellations of the nebula Olympus are astonished. The constellations of the nebula Vedas have boarded their flagship. The constellations of the nebula Papyrus are wary. The messages of the nebulae were hid as the shadow of the dragon trapped in the sphere was revealed. I knew what would happen later. Not long after, the apocalypse dragon roared and swung its tail towards the constellations in the distant star stream. A third of the night sky disappeared. Maybe, if they were really unlucky. Kim Dokja. I turned my head and saw Yu Jonghyuk holding the heaven-shaking sword beside me. He didn't seem to care if this scenario was cleared or not. The moment we made eye contact, I got goosebumps. Since when had the regression depression been released? The 2 eyes were staring at me with a clear awareness. That bastard asked me, "The world that you showed, does it really exist?" Chapter 297, Reader and Writer 3. I couldn't find an answer to Yu Jonghyuk's question. I didn't understand exactly what he meant. Then I heard it once again through Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. Does the world where you live really exist? Then I realized what Yu Jonghyuk was talking about. He had seen the world I lived. Hi hi. The fourth wall was laughing mischievously. The moment I was going to open my mouth, Han Soo-young ran and struck my back, pressing me against the ground. Yu Jonghyuk, didn't you promise me? Anger was contained in Han Soo-young's voice. You will die here and I will get a new world. That was the condition of our exchange. Why did you do this? I could feel the taste of the soil as my lips touched the ground. Kim Dokja was thinking about his future plans. Once again, I didn't know what Yu Jonghyuk felt through my memories. However, looking at his attitude, I didn't think he would give up on this life. A terrible cry came from the top of the ceiling sphere. You Everyone flee, quickly escape from this scenario. The astonished constellations were escaping one by one from the scenario. Even the nebulae in the sky were being bitten by the dragon. The apocalypse was indeed such an existence. The decisive cause of Eden's destruction, the worst disaster of the star stream. In the midst of this, Han Soo-young shouted at Yu Jonghyuk, "Is it because of this guy?" Han Soo-young grabbed my head and screamed, "Did this guy do something to your spirit? Didn't you want to die so badly? Aren't you tired? Don't you want to stop performing scenarios?" Every word spoken by Han Soo-young seemed to pierce my chest. Yu Jonghyuk had no expression, but I knew the life he lived. Yu Jonghyuk of the 1863rd round was the Yu Jonghyuk of the original novel that I knew. When my mother was locked up in prison, when I was bullied, when I sat the CSATs, when I went to the army, and when I joined the company. It was the Yu Jonghyuk I had always been watching. The Yu Jonghyuk who was cold, calculating, and never gave up. I have lived watching such a Yu Jonghyuk. I could live because of him. Thus, I didn't want to let him die. If Yu Jonghyuk died here, the ways of survival that I knew would disappear forever. Yu Jonghyuk slowly opened his mouth. "I want to die." It was a clear voice, but there was a voice only clear to me. "I want to live." My hand tightly gripped the ground. Han Soo-young shouted, "Then why did you do this? Shit, why are you still alive? Somehow replace the apocalypse dragon seal. Draw the sword and do it somehow." Han Soo-young knew there was no possibility. Han Soo-young was collapsing. Her world that she expected through the anticipation plagiarism was collapsing for the first time. Yu Jonghyuk didn't answer. Han Soo-young couldn't overcome her emotions as she threw me away and ran towards Yu Jonghyuk. The blade of unbroken faith moved to Yu Jonghyuk's neck. In the end, Han Soo-young couldn't cut Yu Jonghyuk. Damn it, Han Soo-young's blade stopped as it touched Yu Jonghyuk's neck. Han Soo-young also knew, if she killed Yu Jonghyuk he would only regress. I stood up and told her, "Give up, Han Soo-young. Shut up. You have failed, now you need to find a new way." "Shut up, what do you know? The things I did to get this far." Yu Jonghyuk looked at the blade touching his neck and spoke, "I want to die. I want to live. I want to finish it here. If there is a chance, like the world I saw." Yu Jonghyuk's body shook. It was shaking violently from two different egos clashing. The pain seemed to be getting worse as Yu Jonghyuk grabbed his head and slowly sank down. The surprised Han Soo-young stepped back as a powerful shockwave burst from Yu Jonghyuk's body. Han Soo-young's body flew towards me, and I rolled across the ground. Stories were flowing from Yu Jonghyuk's body. The memories of the 1863rd Yu Jonghyuk revolved in the air, floating past me and Han Soo-young. In the memories, Yu Jonghyuk spoke. "Han Soo-young, find a way to kill me." Then the Han Soo-young in the memory nodded. "Okay, instead promise me, you will help me." The promise between the two people that I didn't know about before. The seemingly perfect 1863rd turn was based on the sacrifice of a single person. In this round, Yu Jonghyuk lost everything. "If you carry out my plan, I can't save your sister." He lost his sister. I can't save the Breaking the Sky Sword Saint and Breaking the Sky Master. There is no time for the first Murim. He lost his teacher. Become the enemy of the world. That way, all who are hostile to you can unite. Through his own will, he became the evil of this world. In the 1863rd round, Yu Jonghyuk was unhappy. He was more unfortunate than any round. I shouted through clenched teeth, Yu Jonghyuk. I didn't know what to say. I could understand the mind of Yu Jonghyuk who wanted to die, but I still forced him to live. It was just because of my words. Then what was right? Yu Jonghyuk asked, the world that you showed, does it really exist? I didn't know if saying this would be comforting to Yu Jonghyuk. I cried out with all my strength. It exists. This was the only thing I could convey to him. It was in a place that he couldn't see or hear, but it definitely existed. Then Yu Jonghyuk answered, I see. Strangely, at this moment, Yu Jonghyuk's expression looked comfortable. You can go back to that world if I die. No, that isn't it. Somehow I'll find a way. You don't have to die. It might take some time, but somehow. I quickly summarized the information in his head. The best possible future was drawn in my head. The world of the third round had Yu Sanga and Han Soo-young and would be safe until I returned. In the 1863rd round, the 95th scenario was already cleared. There were plenty of people who survived, so if I struggled for 3 or 5 years here. I looked up and saw Yu Jonghyuk looking this way. Then it is late. It was as if he knew everything. If you are here, you can't save that world. The moment I wanted to refute it, Yu Jonghyuk stood up. The vibrations from Yu Jonghyuk were becoming bigger, and more than one of him seemed to be seen. The character Yu Jonghyuk has reached the moment of attribute evolution. The character Yu Jonghyuk has received a new attribute. Yu Jonghyuk split apart with a bright light and glanced at me. I was curious about the world's black. A story overflowed and Yu Jonghyuk was split into 2 people. I knew this skill. Avatar, a skill that only a person with the author attribute could use. Until recently, it was Han Soo-young's exclusive skill. Yu Jonghyuk, why you? Han Soo-young's shoulders shook as she opened her mouth. Her real confusion was conveyed through Omniscient Reader's viewpoint. What if a person's presence could be divided exactly in half? Tens of thousands of Han Soo-youngs were talking. If one entity is divided into 2 exact and separate entities, which one of them can be called real? A chill went down my spine. The memories of Han Soo-young in the 1863rd round. Her figure, which was precisely divided into 2, crossed my head like a panorama. It was Han Soo-young's experience and also Yu Jonghyuk's experience. Yu Jonghyuk split into 2 in a brilliant manner and faced each other. Yu Jonghyuk said, I want to die. Then the other Yu Jonghyuk opened his mouth. The other Yu Jonghyuk didn't talk but looked down at his ragged black coat. He threw his coat to the ground. I want to live. The white coat worn by the collapsed Kim Namwoon had fallen to the ground. It was the infinite dimension space coat I lent him. Yu Jonghyuk picked it up and wore it. The white coat fitted to his body like it was made for him from the beginning. The Yu Jonghyuk in a white coat confronted the one in a black coat. There is only one way. The 2 Yu Jonghyuks pointed their heaven-shaking swords at each other. The sponsor of Incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk, is looking at his incarnation. The party members were shouting in a confused manner. What are you doing? Why did you suddenly become 2? In the air, the energy of Breaking the Sky swordsmanship and Breaking the Sky swordsmanship hit each other. Oh my God, that guy. Only Han Soo-young had the same thoughts as me. One being becomes 2. However, there is only one sponsor behind the 2 of them. This was the answer that Yu Jonghyuk found. I shouted at him. Stop, Yu Jonghyuk, I said stop. The method to send me back to the 3rd round and clear this scenario. How to die, yet continue living at the same time. No matter which one survives, the other will regress. The 2 Yu Jonghyuks ignored my call. I will die. I will regress. Yu Jonghyuk knew it. He knew it very well, yet he chose this method. The story ends here. Once again, everything will start from the beginning. There was an end to this world that neither Han Soo-young or I knew. The black coat was pierced by the heaven-shaking sword. It was exactly half his memories. The numerous memories accumulated by Yu Jonghyuk scattered in the air. The stigma regression could only be activated on one side. Thus, I could see it. The black coat Yu Jonghyuk was the one who chose to die. The incarnation Yu Jonghyuk has died. On the opposite side was the Yu Jonghyuk in the white coat. Yu Jonghyuk killed himself with his own hands. However, he was also stabbed. The heaven-shaking sword pierced his belly. The speed was slow, but he was also dying. The sponsor of incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk, is looking at his incarnation. The stigma regression LV has been activated. Incarnation, Yu Jonghyuk, has accepted the intention of his sponsor. Even so, Yu Jonghyuk didn't die. He would open his eyes in the darkness and appear in the subway of the 1864th round, starting everything once again. This is a reward for showing your world. Some stories flowed from the fingertips of Yu Jonghyuk in the white coat and reached me. The stories of the character Yu Jonghyuk have been given to you. I approached Yu Jonghyuk. The person who protected my youth was disappearing into a world I didn't know. The next round, Yu Jonghyuk's figure started to scatter. I didn't hear any more of Yu Jonghyuk's thoughts through Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint no longer worked for him. This person isn't a character. Yu Jonghyuk's appearance was fading into the light of this world. By the time I staggered towards him, Yu Jonghyuk had already disappeared from the world. I looked back and saw Han Soo-young sitting down with a despairing face. You have cleared the criteria of the Outer World Covenant. The dazzling light filled the air like ashes, revealing a pale reality. In it, Yu Jonghyuk was walking towards a world we didn't know. Chapter 298, Reader and Writer 4. Yu Jonghyuk died. The fourth wall is shaking violently. It didn't feel real. The fourth wall is severely shaking. The exclusive skill, fourth wall, is strongly activated. I couldn't breathe from the horror that filled my lungs. Why did Yu Jonghyuk suddenly get the writer attribute, and why did he choose to die or regress? I seemed to know, but it was hard to understand. There was no more of the original Yu Jonghyuk that I knew. Only a handful of stories proved his absence. I felt like this. This is a novel. It is a story in a novel. I slowly inhaled and breathed out again. Yu Jonghyuk escaped from being a character. I got tinnitus and my heart beat like crazy. I once again breathed in and out. The exclusive skill, fourth wall, is activated more strongly. My senses slowly returned, and the murmurs of the party members were heard. What happened? Didn't you just hear? The scenario is cleared. I slapped my cheeks twice and raised my head as I felt the status of the Apocalypse Dragon flowing from the seal. The nebula, Olympus, is preparing the battlefield for the Apocalypse Dragon. The nebula Vedas is preparing for the disaster. The nebula Tamna. If my prediction was correct, there was still time. I shouted towards the party members scattered all over the place. Everyone gather together. I have a story to tell. The party members gathered around me despite their wariness. Someone was supporting the fallen Han Soo-young, while Kim Nam-woon and Lee Ji-hai showed strong hostility towards me. After a while, the Apocalypse Dragon will be released. In relation to that, shut up, what were you doing earlier? You and Yu Jonghyuk joined together to attack Master, Lee Ji-hai screamed as she aimed her blade at my neck. Then Lee Hyun-sung muttered, Dokja Sesai that thing. Captain, what about this jerk? Should I take care of him? Kim Nam-woon filled his hands with the black flames. Han Soo-young shook her head. Everybody, listen to him. Huh? Listen to him. Han Soo-young's eyes were open, but the empty pupils proved that he gave up everything. Han Soo-young resembled me. She might look like this on the surface, but she already understood the situation in her head. Maybe she was thinking about the next plan. I looked around at the party members. Li Hyunsung, Kim Namwoon, Li Xiaohua, Li Jihai, Shin Yusung. The people who survived the 1863rd round. I could have told them the truth about Han Soo-young. Han Soo-young was using you. In order to make a new world, she wanted to end your story here. Even so, I couldn't say it. Everybody take care of the captain. Don't jump to rash conclusions. Listen to Dr. SI. It was because they were seriously following Han Soo-young. The group's hostility towards me was dampened by Li Hyunsung's words. I started the story. The liberation of the apocalypse dragon isn't over when the seal is released. You might not know it, but the end of this scenario. I looked up at the sky. The other party members also looked up with me. The ceiling sphere was crumpled. The fragments of the seal were breaking little by little. As time went on, the density of the sky was becoming thicker. I relied on the fourth wall and spat out empty words. Go back to the headquarters and prepare for the next scenario. Maybe there will be 3 days left. I could immediately leave the 1863rd round. However, I couldn't do this because the characters in this turn were people I liked. I earned some time from the liberation of the apocalypse dragon by using the grass-cutting sword as the last key. It was lacking a bit of status to be used as a key, slightly delaying the release of the apocalypse dragon. I had to use this time wisely. Now that Han Soo-young had chosen this route, the destruction of at least one nebula was determined. The most important thing was to avoid Earth being destroyed. The next day, I handed Li Hyunsung a considerable amount of information. They were all plans that I had mapped out beforehand, from avoiding the disaster of the apocalypse dragon to gaining new stories and items. I also handed over the list of the strongest people. Li Hyunsung listened to my story from beginning to end and suddenly looked up. How does Dr. SI know all of this? It is the reason why Han Soo-young knows. I tried to avoid unnecessary explanations, but Li Hyunsung's expression was unusual. Li Hyunsung hesitated for a long time before saying something unexpected. Is Dr. SI a plagiarist writer? Plagiarist writer? You are, I'm sorry. I was filled with confusion. Did Han Soo-young talk about her attributes? Ah well. Li Hyunsung scratched his head with a troubled expression. I couldn't believe it. The prideful and selfish Han Soo-young showed her original attribute. Why? Everyone get out. I was just thinking this when the door to the Situation Room opened and someone entered. It was Han Soo-young, who was wearing a hat deep over her face. Yes, I understand. Li Hyunsung bowed, packed up and went out of the room. The only ones left in the room were Han Soo-young and me. Since I cleared my outer world covenant, it must be the same for Han Soo-young. In such circumstances, there was no reason for her to show hostility to me. Your mental state seems better. Shut up, Han Soo-young answered as she folded her arms and sat down on the chair. I asked, why are you complaining? Complaining? Is that what you're calling it? Thanks to you, all the people here might die. I saw the party members waiting outside the room for us. The people gathered outside the transparent wall were talking with serious expressions. It was probably because of Han Soo-young's desperate expression shortly after Yoo Jong-hyuk's death. I stated, it is better to go to the next scenario than fall asleep forever. Outside the window, Li Hyunsung met my gaze and smiled faintly. Li Hyunsung knew that Han Soo-young was a plagiarist. Maybe Li Hyunsung knew that Han Soo-young would abandon them. He was bear-like, but he had a deep heart. Li Hyunsung might have predicted that this would happen. Nevertheless, he decided to follow Han Soo-young. I continued speaking. It isn't over when the apocalypse dragon is released. Don't you also know? Han Soo-young bowed her head and didn't answer. The apocalypse dragon that was gradually being freed from the seal. Once freed, there would be a disaster in the star stream. This didn't mean that all future scenarios would end. In fact, in the 1863rd round, Yoo Jong-hyuk freed the apocalypse dragon and saw the end of the scenario. Explain it to the members. Everything you did and everything you hid. It might not be a perfect development, but there is a way to do it. There are still many places where you can borrow power. Anna Croft's Zarathustra, the Seekers of the End, the transcendent king and the person who lives on the reincarnation planet. I told you to shut up. Han Soo-young looked up and glared at me. The prideful eyes glared at me from below the hat. By the way, something was strange. Han Soo-young's eyes were swollen. As I stared at her face, Han Soo-young growled and pressed her hat lower. I didn't like Han Soo-young of the 1863rd round. Even so, I could understand Han Soo-young. The world that she wanted to make was a bit like the world I dreamt of. Han Soo-young spoke through gritted teeth. Yu Jonghyuk became an author. Why did he suddenly get such an attribute? I guess he wanted to write a new story in a very sincere manner. That is the condition to opening the author trait. I could understand, but also didn't understand. A world that couldn't complete the round but was struggling to survive. Yu Jonghyuk went out of it in order to write his own story. Han Soo-young didn't speak, but we could clearly see what the other was thinking. Han Soo-young raised her head, took off her hat, and lit a cigarette. I asked, how about a question and answer exchange? Don't use the system because it is annoying. Han Soo-young smoked with an emotionless face. Lies are included. Okay. You first. I nodded. Who do you think is the author of Ways of Survival? Han Soo-young once again sucked in smoke and blew it out. Then she replied, a very big baby. Baby. In a world without scenarios, only the desire to see the next story. A baby with a terrible imagination. Something came to my mind. A world without scenarios. There was only one such world in this star stream. Don't tell me. You better not say it with your mouth. Han Soo-young pointed at the sky. It might be listening. I closed my mouth. It wasn't impossible if that existence was really the writer. However, my head was in a complicated state as I told Han Soo-young, it's your turn. Ask. I'm thinking, please wait. There isn't much time, so ask me quickly. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning. I have fulfilled the outer world covenant and need to go back to my original world. Han Soo-young frowned slightly. You are finished and you're going to throw us away. That's great. My world is ruined. Everything I know was handed to Lee Hyun-sung. They can proceed to the end without any other help. I thought as I glanced at the people outside the situation room. From the beginning, this world was their world. I asked, when are you going to leave? Leave. You have also fulfilled the outer world covenant. I wasn't the only one to finish the outer world covenant. Yu Jonghyuk had died and Han Soo-young fulfilled his mission. She would now leave to complete her world with the help of secretive plotter. Han Soo-young. Han Soo-young stared at the floor and replied, I'm not going. Chapter 299, Reader and Writer 5. What? I won't go. It was an unexpected answer, so I looked like a fool. Why? Without me, they will all die. I doubted my ears. I couldn't believe that Han Soo-young could talk like this. My voice involuntarily became louder and aggressive. Didn't you want to make your own world? I can make my world later. Somebody has to lead them. Why all of a sudden? Yu Jonghyuk is no longer a character. What do you think that means? I closed my mouth. It is no longer a novel. My heart pounded at Han Soo-young's words. The exclusive skill, fourth wall, is strongly activated. It isn't about being forgiven for everything. No matter how the developments flow, we should end the story properly. Han Soo-young's face couldn't be seen properly because of the brim of her hat. Before my words finished, Han Soo-young left the situation room. I saw Han Soo-young talking to the people outside the situation room. I kept watching. Before leaving, there were a few things that needed to be addressed. One of them was Uriel. I looked down at the confined Uriel doll. She was currently in a state of calm, but once the confinement was over, Uriel would wake up again as the Angel of Flames. She would burn all living things around her. Gabriel's true voice entered my ears. What are you going to do with Uriel? I am thinking. I looked down at Gabriel, who was waving her helplessly drooping petals. Perhaps she was shocked by the situation here. According to the original setting, Gabriel was someone who took good care of other angels. I'll stay. It isn't possible. Why? Is it because I betrayed this place? I didn't answer. Gabriel acted like it was unfair. Why did I betray Eden? It must have been an unavoidable decision for you. Tell me the details accurately. What happened? You know something. I don't know exactly. If you are curious, go back and talk to Metatron. It wasn't good for me to intervene in this thing. There was a possibility that the development of the third round could find unexpected difficulties because of misinterpreted information. Gabriel's leaves trembled. If I go back, won't I betray Eden again? Then I would rather remain here. The future can change, we have to go back. I spoke with confidence. This world wasn't our world. Then Uriel. I told you I'm thinking. For now, the best option was to leave Uriel to Han Suyong. However, I wasn't sure if she could control the Archangel of Flames. The fourth wall is saying, do you want me to come out? There was a way to tell Uriel the story of the third round. However, as I said many times, there was no guarantee that Uriel would hear the story and react like Yu Jonghyuk. Perhaps the story of my world line might further ruin Uriel's insecure spirit. Still, there might be a bigger problem if I really left Gabriel here. Moreover, Gabriel couldn't use confinement of good and evil. I would also like to stay a bit longer and help Uriel. I will stay, Gabriel. The petals of the red cosmos swayed. I reflexively bowed my head and the startled Gabriel shouted, Jophiel. It is best that I stay. It was an unexpected declaration. Even I was stunned. It wasn't another archangel. Jophiel was declaring to stay here. I decided after careful consideration. I can control Uriel through confinement of good and evil. Thus, it is right for me to stay here. Jophiel, if you don't return to the original world now, you might never be able to return. There are a few ways to cross world lines. I know, but they all require a tremendous price. It doesn't matter if I can't go back. Jophiel. Jophiel didn't back down despite Gabriel's cry. This world line also has value. I don't want to depend on this insidious guy, but I think it is better to find out more about this world. I have an obligation to find out why the Eden here was destroyed, what things will happen in the future, and to inform the original world. Jophiel's remark was reasonable. This world was very different from the old 1863rd round, and it would certainly help if information could be sent to the third round. Wait, Jophiel, why are you making this decision? There is no turning back, Gabriel. A gleam of light emerged from the red cosmos, and this turned into a white light that bound the white lily. It was confinement of good and evil. Gabriel's petals drooped like he fell asleep. Jophiel told me, please look after Gabriel. Why are you doing this? Uriel needs Gabriel, and Gabriel, both of them are unstable. I thought like Archangel Jophiel. Eden was a nebula made up of archangels. Then you. I don't believe in you, but I have one thing to ask. I hesitated before nodding. After returning to the original world line, please visit Eden. Then I hope you can tell the scribe what happened here. Can you do that? I understand. Certainly, it wasn't a difficult request. I was already planning to visit Eden. Soon after, Jophiel's cosmos flower drooped. It was a seemingly sleepy and tired appearance. I changed the water bottles of the two flowers. Someone was left and someone was leaving. No matter what was chosen, everyone would eventually reach their end. The next morning, I was sent off by the party members. Many things had happened, but the party members said they would send me off. To be precise, it was Lee Hyun-sung who said it. I turned my head and saw Han Soo-young staring at me with her unique disgruntled face. I handed her a wrinkled notebook. Han Soo-young bluntly wondered, what is this rubbish? The information you need now. I had selected a few more pieces of information that would be useful for the 1863rd round from Ways of Survival. Sparks rose around Han Soo-young's body. I vaguely knew its identity. The sparks were related to Han Soo-young's identity as a character. Don't throw it away and look at it whenever you have time. Han Soo-young stared down at the notebook I gave her and asked, is this okay? What? The fourth wall is strongly activated. Han Soo-young stared at me carefully as if reading something on my fate. Then she shook her head. No, it's nothing. Never mind. She was unreliable. Lee Hyun-sung listened to the conversation and opened his mouth. It would have been nice if we couldn't carried out the scenario together. It is unfortunate. Lee Hyun-sung, who became close to me, said goodbye first, and then Kim Nam-woon stared at me. Bah, get lost. Give my best regards to the me over there. Of course, it wouldn't happen. I had to go to the next world to speak to Kim Nam-woon of the third round. The moment I finished the goodbyes and was turning around. Hey! Something with a soft weight came flying towards my back. I hurriedly turned my head and grabbed it. A white coat was caught. It was the infinite dimension space coat. Didn't you never get a clear reward? Take this. It was the coat that Han Soo-young was wearing. I was dumbfounded. Coming to the 95th scenario and only getting something like this. Han Soo-young looked at me like I was pathetic. Then a thought crossed my mind. This bastard don't tell me. I placed my hands in my pocket with a bemused expression and Han Soo-young asked, "The question I didn't ask yesterday, can I finish it now?" Speak. Why did you say you wouldn't go back to the third round? It was an unexpected question. Han Soo-young continued to ask. You are playing my part over there. If you didn't go back, that world would have perished. You should know this so. Let's see why. What? Even without me, the third round would have been fine for a long time. How can you be sure? Han Soo-young stared at me suspiciously. You are there. Han Soo-young's expression slightly hardened at my words. Her eyes were shaking with vague surprise. I believe in the you of the third round. Han Soo-young stared at me for a moment before turning her head away. Quickly get lost. I don't want to see you anymore. I'm going stay alive and well. I looked up at the sky. The constellation, Demon King of Salvation, is looking at the night sky. Secretive plotter, please fulfill the contents of the covenant. A new portal was created under my feet. It felt like something was pulling at me as the world started to collapse. The world of the 1863rd round was becoming dim. A world different from the original that I knew. It was a short time, but I felt that many things had changed. Lee Hyun-sung waved while the others sent me off with complicated expressions. Just like you Jong-hyuk did and I did, they would walk through a world different from the original that I knew. Maybe someday our worlds might be able to meet one another. However, even if we couldn't meet again, there was no doubt that the world existed, just like ways of survival was to me. The world was dark. I felt dizzy while hearing the voice of an outer god. On lie the sto rai without a begin, ending or end will remain. The ground disappeared and I was sucked into the portal. The metaphysically distorted pathways narrowed and expanded several times. I closed my eyes and let my body flow in an unmeasurable passage of time. I shouldn't have been gone for too long from the third round. After a while, I fell to the ground with a loud sound. The outer world covenant has been completed. The compensation will be settled. To be precise, it wasn't the ground. It was the galaxy of the star stream that I had seen before. My body was floating in the emptiness of the universe. I groaned and saw the hem of a black cloak dragging against the ground. You came. It was Secretive Plotter. Chapter 300, Episode 57, Glorious Return 1. The exclusive skill, Fourth Wall, is strongly activated. The fourth wall moved the moment Secretive Plotter stared at me. The fourth wall growled like a beast protecting its cubs. Be careful, Kim Dok-ya. The first time I came here, Secretive Plotter called the fourth wall the last wall. There was no information about it in the original, but that didn't mean I had no idea at all. It was because there were various types of walls in ways of survival, including Jang Haeyoung's unidentified wall. I came to receive the compensation, Secretive Plotter. I opened my mouth, but Secretive Plotter didn't reply. Sparks were flying around Secretive Plotter. The darkness covering his expression looked angry as he asked me, Demon King of Salvation, why did you make that choice? Huh. I didn't know what he meant by his sudden question. Secretive Plotter asked again, "Why didn't you want to go back to the third round? That world wasn't your round." "This world saved my life, that's it. If you left it, they could find rest." "That isn't rest. Secretive Plotter, why did you send me to that parallel world?" The sparks around Secretive Plotter intensified. It seemed like his existence was becoming unstable. Secretive Plotter sighed and said, "Everything was already decided. You don't know what you changed." The white hole in the place where there should be eyes was watching me. "I will give you the reward I promised." I nodded. There were 3 rewards promised for this sub-scenario. An item, skill, and story that was acquired in the 1863rd round. "What item will you take?" "This coat." I was a bit tense as I pulled out the white coat that Han Soo-young gave me. Secretive Plotter's eyes leaked out light and narrowed. It seemed I couldn't deceive the outer god. Secretive Plotter had promised me 1 item. However, the coat's inner pockets contained more than 1 item. "That's fine. Since 1 less flower is returning, the total sum of probability must be similar to the flower. The Infinite Dimension Space Coat has been received as a reward item." Fortunately, Secretive Plotter overlooked Han Soo-young's coat. Next was the story. "You will naturally be taking that story." "That's right. In the first place, the only story I got in the 1863rd round was the one that Yu Jonghyuk gave to me. Obtaining this story meant I needed to modify some of my planned routes, but it didn't matter. The important thing was to see the end of the story that I chose. You have acquired a new story. This story will be applied normally after returning to the original world line. Last was the skill. What will you do about the skill? You didn't acquire any new skills." "I wasn't able to receive a skill, but is it possible to receive this type of compensation?" I started explaining to Secretive Plotter. After a while, Secretive Plotter nodded. "It is possible. You have acquired the reward skill. This skill will be applied normally after returning to the original world line." I obtained everything I needed to get. The unexpected happened when I was going to ask the Secretive Plotter to return me to my original world. There were strong sparks as someone tried to penetrate this space from the rear. I noticed the status that could be felt beyond this space. It seemed that the Bureau had noticed Secretive Plotter in this place. In other words, the person trying to break into this space was likely to be a great Dakibai of the Bureau. "You'll be going now, Demon King of Salvation." Secretive Plotter moved his fingertips lightly, and a portal appeared under my feet. I hurriedly called out to Secretive Plotter, "Wait a minute, how many years will have passed when I return to the world?" Secretive Plotter glanced at me. "Some stories are read quickly, and some are read slowly." I tried to open my mouth, but my lower body had already passed through the portal. "Demon King of Salvation, do you think the story of your disappearance will be read quickly or slowly?" I could hear a mischievous laugh coming from somewhere. The portal was fully activated, and my field of view was completely blocked. "Once we meet again, I hope that you are the proper master of the wall." Was it because it wasn't my first time crossing the world line? I was able to maintain my consciousness despite being swept through the portal. "The fourth wall is strongly activated. The Viceroy's dimensional door has set the time-space coordinates." The scene of the flowing star stream. I thought of the things I needed in the memories that floated up like buoys. "The Viceroy's dimensional door is closed." I woke up at the message and was lying on the ground. It was a spacious place dimly illuminated by lanterns hanging from the ceiling. There seemed to be voices in the distance. Where was I? It didn't seem to be Earth. Why did I suddenly come here? "The star stream has detected your presence in the world. The star stream has reconfirmed your modifier. The star stream will assign you to the scope of your constellation. The Bureau is calculating your status." I thought I knew what was going on. I left the scenario of the original world through the outer world covenant. A price was necessary to return to the original scenario. I felt the muscles of my body jerking as the messages continued to rise. The Bureau has completed your examination. Returning you to the original scenario isn't suitable. The Bureau will review scenarios for your level. The review has been completed. I sighed as I watched the messages that came up. I expected this to happen. No, actually, I intended it. I left my original world and went to another world. The categories were different, but all beings who came back to the original scenario like me were called by the same name. You have acquired a new story. You have acquired a new attribute. You have obtained the qualification of a returnee. A new scenario is being prepared for you. I had become a returnee. I slowly raised my body and saw several men and women talking around me. They were all returnees like me. Ha, I can finally return to Earth. It has been 10 years. I have been waiting 20 years. Where have you been? Based on the colors, was it Murim? I'm from Gratis. Have you heard of it? Then someone waved at me. Oh, you must be the last one. It was a man dressed in black shaman clothing. He was wearing a mask, but his eyes and the impression he gave off were somewhat familiar. I briefly greeted him and the man spoke again. Brother, where are you from? Earth. No, that isn't the question. There is no one here who isn't from Earth. I'm asking about the planet you moved from. The man smiled wryly. At this moment, I thought I knew the identity of the man. A towering person who looks like he has a bag of tricks. Eyes that are suitable for night vision and only half the eyebrows are left, as if eaten by crows. I couldn't help smiling. It was already time for this person to appear. The place I went to was also Earth, the Earth of a parallel dimension. HRMM, is that so? You are a very unusual person. The man extended his hand towards me. I will introduce myself first. My name is Wang Wirong. In the second Murim that I went to, I was called Flying Fox. Flying Fox, Wang Wirong. He was one of Yu Jonghyuk's later colleagues. My name is Kim Dokja, also known as the Demon King of Salvation. A few returnees, listening to the story from the side, laughed. Demon King of Salvation, Kuahahat. It is a great title. It looks like you went to some third-rate fantasy world. A hand hit me on the back. More of them were returnees from Murim or a medieval world. Flying Fox said with a grin, nice nickname. It's nothing. By the way, you have already been given the returnee's clothing. Ah, yes. I looked down at the infinite dimension space coat I was wearing. I forgot it was originally a garment only for returnees, just like the disaster of questions who I once faced. Maybe that guy was summoned to Earth after going through the same procedure. Just then, Dakibus appeared in the air and started giving coats to the returnees. Several returnees looked between the coats they received and mined and protested. Hey Dakibai, the one he is wearing looks much better. It was natural. It didn't make sense if a coat received from the 95th scenario was worse than the supply coat. Some of the Dakibus were shocked when they saw me and reported to their superiors. By now, Bihyung should know I was back. I wanted to see the people of Earth as soon as possible. How many years had passed? Everybody had to be doing well. Flying Fox received the coat and said with a smile, nice clothes. What will you do when you get back? I'm going to look for somebody. Ho, do you have a lover waiting? I smiled at him. Flying Fox kept speaking. I think I will live in a grand style once I go back. I have obtained a long-awaited strength. I don't need to be intimidated by bullies anymore. Now is the beginning of happiness. The days won't be that happy. Earth would have changed a lot. Yuha, you are already talking weakly. I have been through all that suffering. What can happen when I get back to Earth? All returnees, please pay attention. The turmoil subsided, and the intermediate Dakibai in charge of the returnees opened his mouth as the representative. You will soon return to Earth. You will be assigned a returnee-only scenario and will perform that scenario in your hometown. It is a simple play and I would appreciate it if you enjoyed it. A returnee scenario, tell us properly. Please check the scenario window for details. Please note that this is a group scenario, so there is a leader. Please remember that the one with the most prominent status will be automatically elected as leader. I will naturally be the leader. That friend from Murim looks pretty strong. I wondered who would be the king of this group. The return to Earth has begun. Together with the dazzling light, the 10 returnees started to move through the space at once. My vision briefly blackened, and when I opened my eyes again, we were in the middle of a vast city. A damaged sidewalk covered with dust. The skyline where the reconstruction of buildings had begun. It was unmistakably Earth. Where is this? Those characters. South Korea. It is South Korea. A returnee from the Korean peninsula jumped forward. I checked the information related to the returnee scenario and shouted, "Wait a minute." Everyone calmed down and gathered together. The returnees were already out of control. Some hasty returnees grabbed the people passing by and asked, "Where is this? What year is it now?" I sighed. The returnee trigger has been activated. They asked for the date. They are returnees. AHAC returnees run away. Report to the Alliance. The whole street was rattled by the word returnee. The people fled like the tide, and the returnees made puzzled expressions. What did I do wrong? A new main scenario has arrived. Main scenario 45, Glorious Return has started. The reflections on the glass building could be seen. Sparks flew as my appearance changed. It was the terrible appearance of a dirty monster with tentacles. The real me wasn't like this, but outwardly, I looked like a smaller outer god. I probably looked like this to everyone on Earth. To the people of Earth, all returnees were disasters. The incarnations of Earth stepped closer with cold eyes. I turned around to see the confused flying fox open his trembling lips. "Brother, what is this?" I told you nothing joyful would be waiting for us. The summoning of the 163rd returnees group has been completed. You're the king of the 163rd returnees group.